What's happening, people? Scarface First here, back on another one of these weekly live shows, Monday, 8 p.m. live on YouTube. Today, I'm joined by a fabulous panel. But before I introduce them, I just wanted to say, isn't it great to be, not doing therapy sessions on a Monday, which we spent the majority of the last season doing, and talking about Ange Ball. It's fantastic. I'm absolutely loving it. Welcome for the first time on the show, the fantastic Lee McQueen. Lee, how are you doing?
Harry, top man, yeah, I'm really good, thanks. I apologise in advance. I'm still very hoarse from Saturday. There was some serious limbs going on in the South Stand when that Kulusevski winner went in. So yeah, I'm really pleased to be here, and yeah, looking forward to getting into it, mate, with you and the boys and all the viewers.
It's a pleasure to have you on, Lee. It really is. Josh as well. I think your second or third time on the show. It's been a while though. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing well. Absolutely buzzing. Nice to go into the workplace today with the amount of gooners that I work with who are all miserable at the fact that, they thought that Sheffield United had it in the bag, but guess who had the last laugh? So, yeah, great feeling and loving Ange Ball, as you say.
Absolutely, yeah. We're definitely going to get into Ange Ball and dive into everything about the game. Kallum, fellow co-host from Part Lane Podcast, saw you yesterday on the show. How are you doing?
Pleasure as always, mate. Pleasure as always. It's great to be back. And I think I'll reiterate what Josh has said. It's good to see all the Arsenal fans a little bit dejected after that game of... they seem a little bit scared for next weekend, so let's bring it on.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely get into that towards the end of the show. But before we crack into it, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to smash the subscribe button because it's free to do so and it helps the channel and the show grow. If you like what you're seeing as well, don't forget to turn the notifications bell on. If you are listening on any other podcast platform, such as Spotify, don't forget to give us a follow and 5-star review. That'd be massively appreciated. We know a lot of you recently have been watching on Spotify, so that's massively appreciated. Every week, the numbers seem to be broken, so that is massively appreciated. So thank you very much for that. But without further ado, let's crack into it. And Lee, starting with you, I want to know, going back to before the game, which is actually hard to think about it now, what are your thoughts on the lineup? Obviously unchanged from that win before the international break against Burnley. Surprised by that? Anything you would have changed?
I think he got it spot on, Harry, to be fair. I think, we played so well against Burnley and we could have had another 2 or 3, I think, that day. I think from memory, we had 29 attempts, I think 10 on target against Burnley. So to actually go with an unchanged lineup was pretty standard, to be fair. The only thing you would say is Burnley's a very different opposition to Sheffield United, and you knew that going to Burnley, they're going to try and play their expansive football. That's what Vincent Kompany's all about. That's what got them up with 3 figures last season from the Championship. So ultimately, knowing that they were going to be open and expansive gives us a bit of a chance. Sheffield United, to be fair to them, they come in and they've got their game plan, and their game plan was clearly low block, low block, low block. They had a couple of chances, to be honest, in the first half, and I thought Fakario made another wonderful save. May well have been given offside, but even so, he didn't know that in the beginning. It was a fantastic save of his legs. So I think all in all, for me, the team was pretty good. I think you can't drop Sonny down the middle after you scored a hat-trick, but actually, and again, this is probably a little bit of hindsight, having Richarlison backing into people, winning duels and headers is probably better against a low block type side. But I was very happy with the side, and the whole place was buzzing. Like, we were on the train up there. There's photos and pictures coming through on social media. Everyone's buzzing to get back to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to watch Ange Ball, and I was one of them, and I absolutely loved it. And it's a weird feeling, because as a Spurs fan, as all of us are Spurs, that you're always thinking something's going to go wrong. You're always thinking, there's in the back of your mind, this not going to work. And I, honestly, hand on heart, Harry, I did not think we would lose that game, even at 1-0, even in the 90th minute. I still thought we would get something out of it, and lo and behold, we did.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on, Lee. I love the togetherness that we're seeing amongst the fans, amongst the team. It's just something I don't think we've seen for a long, long while. Josh, what do you make of that lineup? Obviously, Lee mentions, it would have been really, really harsh on Son to take him out and replace him with Richarlison down the middle, because obviously he got a hat-trick against Burnley. Before the game, would you change anything? Happy with the lineup?
But let's be real. Nobody wanted Richarlison to start, bar Richarlison and those close to him. That's the reality of it. Everyone would have said, given the form that Richarlison was in and the form that Son had gone into the game with, obviously the hat-trick against Burnley, no one was going to even doubt that decision. I know that there was a few rumours of maybe Son might not play, but, you know, for me, it was great to just keep that continuity. It was great to come out the international break pretty much unscathed in terms of injuries. Of course, we all saw that challenge from Bolivia on Romero. That could have been really serious. Thankfully, he was fine and he was kind of imperious as always. Yeah, I think it was a really good lineup. I was happy with it. I was happy to see Solomon get his first start at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Of course, as the game went on, there were things that we probably, I'm sure we'll discuss, didn't quite go to plan, and players that perhaps weren't quite where we'd hoped they would be in that game, despite what was, I think, an overall very positive performance. But yeah, I don't think we can have any complaints about the lineup. And what was nice to see for a change was Tottenham, and Ange turning to the bench and having some real quality and some real impact, which is something we've not had for a number of years. And I think even probably during our best years under Poch, that was always our weak spot, was we could never really have enough quality to bring off the bench. So to see Richarlison, Højbjerg, who I think actually his role was understated, Johnson come on, Perisic as well, all of these players making a real impact when they came on, albeit, I thought it was very late to make those changes. I mean, the proof is in the result, right? So, I think rightfully we can be very excited. And I think what this says to Ange is that there's more than 11 players that he can trust here. There's a whole squad of players he can trust here. And I think, going into such a big game like Arsenal, we may have to call on those players again. So anyone who is fit and in the squad needs to be ready to get minutes. And it seems like that's the way they're being prepared. So yeah, absolutely buzzing with the lineup and how it went.
Okay, thank you, Josh, for that. Kallum, what do you make of that lineup? Obviously, we briefly discussed it yesterday, but would you realistically change anything? Did you want to see Richarlison start after obviously what he'd been through and publicly spoke out, or do you think that it was fair to stick with Son? Obviously, scored a hat-trick against Burnley. Talk to me.
I think it was fair to stick with Son because we know Richarlison is purely a confidence player. He's devoid of confidence at the moment. Well, before Saturday, he was devoid of it. And he obviously had physical struggles. He had mental struggles. And it's great how everyone backed him to stand by him and stood by him. All the teams stood by him after Saturday. But yeah, I think to throw him in there would have been a little bit unfair because then it allows him to be in the limelight. It puts everyone on his back. It's not fair to expect so much of him, especially against a team with such a horrible style in the way that Sheffield United play. But yeah, I think going with the same lineup as Burnley, they played their hearts out the last time out. They scored 5, only conceded 2. They was in form. All of them were in form, and this is the team that Ange stuck by, and to stick by him, I thought was a brave and very good decision. But you could see through, like what the guys have alluded to, that they started to lack a little bit of composure, and there was definitely areas to improve. But like we said last night, very young team. We're still at the start of our project. We're building up to go there, and we just need to keep going with it, mate.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Kallum.
Interact with you there, boys. If you look at some statistics, I've got a blue book, right, fresh from last week. And actually, if you look at some of the statistics, Man City played Sheffield United a few weeks ago, right? And it was at their place, not at Man City's place. It was their place. And City, to be fair, they had 30 shots at their goal and 9 on target. You take into consideration Spurs are at home, you'd expect them to be putting teams away a little bit easier. But again, 28 shots at goal, Spurs, 10 on target. You talk about a young side, and you talk about the fact that Man City have had that side put together for years under Pep Guardiola's guidance. We've been together 5 minutes. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been a really, really key difference. Josh, focusing on the first half, what do you make of it? Obviously 0-0 at the break, struggling to break Sheffield United down. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with the first half, to be honest. I mean, I expected us to dominate the ball. I expected us to create some chances. That's what we're coming to know and love with Ange Ball. But fundamentally, I felt like the approach was a little bit off. Sheffield United are one of those teams that haven't quite developed beyond what we used to, I suppose, associate with the sort of relegation contenders, which is that kind of really rugged, hard to break down, long ball, frustrate you with time wasting, big physical presence, all of those things, hit you with set pieces. And yet we kept trying to cross the ball aerially into the box when you've got Solomon, who can't be much taller than about 5'6", 5'7". Son, who, although he's, I think, about 6 foot, is not, renowned for his aerial ability. And Kulusevski, who wasn't in the box, in those types of positions, even though he's fairly tall. So to me, it made no sense that was the approach. We kept going down the wings and we were having joy at getting into those positions, and between Decky and between Solomon, we were creating chances. I felt like Pedro Porro probably wasn't quite as involved in the game as I would have liked to see from him. But overall, I think first 15 minutes, and actually I think this is probably a wider point about Ange Ball. It's the only thing that slightly concerns me. It's my only concern because, I love Ange Ball. I love what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Those first 15 minutes, how often did we see players miscontrol the ball, not quite pass with the right amount of power, concede a couple of chances, look a little bit ropey? And that wasn't just in the Sheffield United game. This has been a recurring theme. This happened at Burnley. This happened at Brentford. Even against Man United, I think they were all over us in the first 15 minutes. So whilst I'm not worried about it in the slightest in terms of the overall scheme of things, and we're finishing games really strongly, against Arsenal, for example, we cannot have a slow start. So, I just felt like, it was a case of trying to work out Sheffield United, trying to find ways to break the lines. I thought James Maddison was picking up positions really well. But I think the other thing, and it might sound silly saying it, but it was absolutely boiling. So I can imagine on the pitch, these players, I wouldn't blame them for feeling maybe a little bit sluggish coming back from international break where they're out of the groove of playing consistent Premier League matches. Because I suppose certainly for those players that are travelling long hours, I know they've been training, but maybe it does disrupt. It does maybe disrupt the flow a little bit. I don't know, but I guess it was good. It was fine. I would have liked to see a score, but you're always going to have these problems against teams like Sheffield United because they literally are set up to try and not lose.
Yeah.
So overall, I think it was fine. I just think that there were obviously a few things that could have been better, and I think that Ange would have probably said that to the players at half-time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Josh. Lee, what do you make of that first half?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, I take Josh. I take your point about the going wide and putting crosses in. There's a couple of issues for that. One, that's how low block want you to do. So the team playing low block actually want to push you wide, so you don't come through the middle. So they're actually quite comfortable with that. Two, you've got Sonny, who is almost like a false nine rather than a full nine. And as we mentioned right at the beginning of the show, when Richarlison came on, he's backing in, he's winning his headers. I think he had 5 duels and he won 3 of them, whereas Sonny wasn't doing that. So I take your point about that, but I was actually quite encouraged by the first half because we did have a chance with Sonny. So Fortune made the save, I think, with a whipped-in shot. Solomon hit the stanchion, I think, or there was a big save that went for a goal kick when it was clearly a corner. Also, there was a massive penalty shout. I mean, it was an absolute stonewall penalty. And I have to say, just quickly, I'm sure we'll come on to it, but referee, Peter Banner, you are having a laugh, mate. I mean, it was absolute shocking decisions. And of course, went to Basuma opportunity as well, where Fortune saved from Basuma. So I think within the first 15 minutes or so, and again, I agree with Josh, we have started both first halves and second halves generally in across the season. We've struggled in either one of them two in the first kind of 10, 15 minutes or so. And I agree around Arsenal. But I think when you actually start pecking them up, they had one chance in the whole of that first half, and that was the save that we referenced from Vicario. Other than that, they didn't even touch us. Like literally, Vicario didn't do anything. And we had all the ball and all them key areas. But I think you're right, Josh, trying to find a way to break the lines, trying to bring in. I've been not calling for it, that's wrong, but I've been thinking Decky coming in and making an advanced date might change it up a bit. And obviously when that happened in the second half, it did, of course. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays moving forward with the likes of Brennan Johnson, because again, he comes on. I know we're getting to the second half, but he comes on and I know it's offside, but he scores. So, we did have 2 goals ruled out for offside. We did have the penalty shout. We did obviously score 2 as well. And like I say, we got an 89% passing accuracy across that first half, which again, we wasn't even hitting none of them numbers under Conte or dare I say Nuno, whatever. Yeah. We were in the early 80s. Now we're in and around the 90 passing accuracy. And some people might think that's a ridiculous stat, but when you're making 600 plus passes, 629 passes, it's a huge shift in what we've been seeing. And I'm all for it, boys. I'm all for it. I tell you, I'm loving it.
Yeah, not the only one. Absolutely, Lee. And we'll definitely get on to the referee's performance, because I do think it was questionable and it does need to be discussed, as we discussed a lot. It's fair to say Paul Heckingbottom wasn't happy, and a lot of both sets of fans weren't happy either with the referee. So we'll get into his performance and decisions into it. But before we move on, Callum, what do you make of that first half? Because obviously you struggled to break them down. Was it okay for you the first half? Anything you didn't wasn't impressed with and would like to see us improve on with the North London derby coming up?
I'll reiterate what Lee said. I wasn't worried, but when you've got a team like Sheffield, who ironically have played like how Conte wanted us to play, with that low block and actually being able to defend. So maybe we should have, maybe they should have had our team previously. But yeah, to be honest, the only thing that really sort of concerned me through that first half was the lack of clinical finishing. And I think that's the one thing that you might lack when you're playing a false 9, or even saying that Richarlison's a centre forward. He's not an out-and-out striker. He's a centre forward or a false 9 sort of conversion if you want to. So no matter what you've got in them 2 players, if you play them, you've got to be clinical with them. And there was no clinical finishing from us. There was no precision, creativity. Yeah, we created a lot of chances, but still only had 8 on target for the whole game as well. And a lot of them did come in the first half as well. So I think that when you're playing against such a low block team, you have to play between the lines. You have to try and use it to your advantage, not throwing in crosses after cross after cross. That's a high ball when they've got some of the biggest defenders actually in the league and all that in Sheffield United. They are not small people.
Callum, it's ironic though, isn't it, that we actually scored from a corner, which was a well-worked, whipped-in corner, i.e. across. Charleston scores with a free header, by the way. But I mean, I totally agree with what you and Josh are saying about that. Totally agree. But it's so ironic, isn't it? To be actually from a set piece.
I thought Giovanni Vio had left us. I didn't know he was still doing his set pieces.
To be fair, when you've got somebody like Perisic, I mean, he is the assist king, isn't he? To be fair for Spurs over the last kind of season and a bit. And actually, regardless of what you think about his legs or what you think about, I mean, he's still ripped to pieces. Crackers calls him the cheese board, the cheese grater. Like, he's absolutely ripped, the fella. And he's very, very fit. But actually, probably at the wrong end of his career for this young, hungry Tottenham team. But no one can criticise the crossing ability that the bloke's got. He's just fantastic, and again involved in the build-up to the second goal as well. But sorry to interrupt you. I just thought it was ironic that we were, don't put crosses in, and it was a corner we scored from.
There you go.
To be fair, Lee, to follow your point, he is still probably Croatia's or one of Croatia's greatest ever players, and all that. Even at his age now. I mean, I was watching Holly's pod earlier, and people were commenting, going, "He's come to the Premier League 5 years too late." Well, yeah, maybe he's a little bit older, but the man's physically fit. I mean, me at 26. If I was that fit, Jesus, then now, well, if I was fit that now, then I'll be fine. But I mean, I'm dead, and he's bloody keep going. So I mean, he's outstanding, the man. He's outstanding.
I would just say on Perisic, I think it's completely wrong for people that are saying, you know, he's come to the Premier League too late, 5 years too late, because 5 years ago he wasn't actually the player he became. He has been one of those players that has always been a good player, but he's really kind of blossomed late into his career. Yes, we might be just on the other side of that kind of peak. However, there's no doubting what he can do to the squad, what he can give the squad off the bench, in cup games, that experience. And I know we're trying to build a young team, but name a single team that has won anything of note that didn't have one or two real experienced, older players. And Perisic is someone that has been around Bayern Munich, Inter Milan. He's been in a Croatia team that has reached semi-finals and I think they reached the Nations League final as well. And World Cup final as well. So this is a guy that has been in big dressing rooms with big players in big matches, and you need that. You need that when we're building a young and hungry squad, to have someone that still, in my opinion, I know James Maddison's got good delivery on him, but so far I'm still, as much as I absolutely love Maddison, I'm yet to see him deliver the ball the way that Perisic does yet. So. For me, I don't understand that. I certainly don't understand. There were reports of Ange wanting to force Perisic out or telling him he was surplus to requirements. And I'd actually love to know what the thinking behind that was, because I think it was clear to see this is a guy that comes on with a level head and real quality. And I completely agree with Crackers. He is like a cheese grater, the way he's ripped. But the guy could probably... If you were to get them doing the bleep test, I reckon he'd probably outlast 90, if not 95% of that squad.
100%. Yeah, no, thank you all for that. Moving on to our equaliser in the 98th minute. Obviously, Richarlison came on and scored. Coming back to you, Lee, how happy were you, firstly, for Richarlison individually, and how much did he need that?
Well, he needed it massively, I think, for not only for himself, but maybe for for the club. There's a lot of people that are questioning whether or not he's good enough, whether or not he should be in the Tottenham shirt. We paid a lot of money for him, and I just think that it's a brilliant example. Maybe brilliant is the wrong word, but it is a brilliant example of showing that as Ange said, anything other than making 9 changes for the bloody Carabao Cup game, has Ange actually put a foot wrong yet? He come out before the game talking about Richarlison and mental health and how important it is, and to remind all of us that footballers are human too, and we are. And I talk about this a lot. My business, Phoenix 51, talks about behaviours and competencies. We're data driven. This is the business that I run, that I set up a few years ago. All about people and all about who you are and your behaviour and your attitude. And actually, if you're going for a tough time, no matter who you are, no matter how much money you've got, you're going for a tough time, right? That's the definition of going for a tough time, and he obviously is. So I think he did need it. I think the fans needed to see that from him. The reaction as well of him scoring. I think he scored 2, didn't he, for Brazil in the international duty after he missed that sitter essentially, and we saw him crying on the bench. But both of them were offside. He's had what, 2 or 3 for us that have been offside goals when he's gone whirling away with his shirt in his hand and whatever, and it hasn't come to fruition. And even the Liverpool goal, go 3-0 down at Anfield, and to get back to 3-0 with his goal, it didn't count for anything, did it, lads? Because ultimately, we end up 20, 30 seconds later losing the game with a Jota goal. So he hasn't really had that massive moment in the Spurs shirt, and I think it is Sheffield United, as Josh said right at the beginning, like it's Sheffield United, what's happening here. But it was the manner and the way that we took that game and scored that goal, and he needed that. And I know we'll come on to the winner as well, but obviously assisted as well. We set that up as well. So I think an all-round game when he come off the bench on I think they scored 73rd minute. And I think Ange made the changes relatively quickly after that, didn't he? And I think, for the 20 minutes he was on the pitch, I thought he was absolutely outstanding, in my opinion. And that will give him massive confidence moving forward. So, I'm really pleased for him. He seems like a good guy as well. And actually, when you've got stuff going on, we see it with Dele Alli, lads. Who knew that was going on with Dele? And, I'm not trying to make excuses and stuff. It's so easy. Footballers put themselves out there. They're out there on social media. They're famous people. They get paid a lot of money. They're amazing athletes. They do what they do. They're in everybody's eye line. I won a TV show, as most of you might or might not know, but back in the day, I won the TV show The Apprentice. And you put yourself out there on TV for 11 million people, 12 million people to criticise you if they want to. But you know what you're doing in that way. But actually, regardless of how good or bad you might be, if you've got an issue in your private life, it comes to work with you, and that's tough to do. And I think we've all can probably relate to that. So totally delighted for Richarlison to do what he did. And he set the limbs off, didn't he? Let's be honest, lads. He set them limbs off in the South Stand and everywhere in the stadium.
He sure did. No, thank you for that, Lee. Kallum, so we've obviously spoken a lot on the show of Richarlison. And it's been a bit critical, hasn't it, on the show generally? But it's funny to see how people change their minds. Not here today, anyone, but people changed their minds yesterday on the show, wasn't it? Someone named Luke. We can't come round to the idea because he was the first one to say he wanted Richarlison out the door. So there you go. He's very happy for him yesterday. So Kallum, how much did Richarlison need that? And just how happy are you for him?
I will just say Luke did verify tonight that he will shave his head if Richarlison scores the winner next weekend. And that is quite an outside. So he will be looking like me next weekend if it comes down to it. But
can't wait.
No, to be honest, for anyone with issues at all in their personal or private life or work life, something as big as a goal like that for Richarlison would have, and the assist, would have done him the world of good. And you could just see how he was playing. He was playing like a man possessed. It's like Ange just went, right, here's your Lucozade, go. And just literally just ran his heart out. And he just literally just run down. At one point, when I was watching it, I thought he was going to score that goal and then literally run down the high road and all that. He was going to go down to the Emirates, kick the door in and go, I'm back. But the great thing about it is that it's so good to see. It doesn't matter if it's against a top club like Man City or a team that's only just got relegated or promoted, in Sheffield United. For someone personally who's got so little confidence to feel on top of the world and have the team support him and back him, Sonny's been saying it, Andrew said it all of this week. Every player has come out in support of him before and after the game. it's so great. And like Lee said, having staff, having a team around you. I mean, I've got staff who work for me, and I know that if people feel low, you have to ask them the right questions to find out what is going on, whether it be their work life or their personal life. If you understand people and you can discuss that fully with them, whether it be through a support network, a mental health support, or just generally family and friends, it's so unbelievably strong what it can do. And at the end of the day, everyone's going to go, right, we all have our own problems. Yeah, we do. But these are football players. They're in the limelight. They're in the media. They're
Pressure.
constantly bombarded by social media. And we know social media, for all its greatness, is a toxic haven. It is a waste bin of just stuff that we don't need. And actually to have people backing him up and sending him lovely messages, having the whole of the South Stand celebrate him, having everyone in that stadium supporting him was brilliant. And you saw everyone, even when he scored that goal, he was like, no, we're not stopping for the equaliser. I'm getting a ball, we're putting it back in the centre, we go again. And you saw how Perisic, Højbjerg, all of them played it into Richarlison, it got into Kulusevski's feet, and they just went. And the fact that everyone was on such a high, it didn't just do his mental health the world of good, it did everyone in that stadium, because we know that we want to be watching football as a relief now. Whereas before you used to be able to go to the football, do loads of stuff. In these tough times, it's very difficult to go and watch football all the time now because of the cost and everything like that. So having such a high like that, every Spurs fan this weekend has been buzzing, going up in the air, and we're all great. And my mental health feels good after that as well, to be honest, compared to how I felt when I was looking at it 73 minutes going, come on, Ange, what's going on? I'm watching this here. Where am I? So that's all I can say, mate.
Yeah. No, exactly. Actually, well said.
So long.
That's all right. Well said, Kallum. I think you spoke some absolute facts there, and it's obviously an important topic that can't be ignored. Josh, talk to me about Richarlison, how you felt being there, obviously, when the goal went in, hit the back of the net, how you felt for him as well. Talk to me.
Now, Harry, I know I've always been a big Richarlison fan. I know he's not been good enough, but I've always been a huge Richarlison fan from the get-go. I've been one of those people that is prepared to stick my neck on the line and believe that he can come good. I'm so pleased for him. I'm absolutely buzzing for him. Interesting that I think he's scored now 5 goals for Spurs in competitive games, all 5 headers, which is interesting. I'd like to see a bit more, from him still with his feet, but it doesn't matter how they go in as long as they go in. And I was told by someone before the game that knows him quite well that he was apparently telling all his mates that he was going to score before the game. He predicted it. He said, he obviously woke up with that feeling, I'm going to score.
I like that.
And he did that. And, what I would also say is, and there has been a lot of abuse for Richarlison. There are a lot of people that still get on his back, still don't think he's good enough. And, and I accept that. 1 goal against Sheffield United isn't enough, I think, to change a lot of people's minds. And, I still think we need a lot more from him. I want to see him deliver in big games as well, in big moments. But, considering where he's been, the frustrations he's had this sort of recurring injury problem that plagued him last season. He had to see specialists in the summer. That's been a bit of an issue. He was playing when he wasn't quite 100%. Let's not forget, under Conte, he was playing out of position largely as well. And he's having to fight for his place now. And it's good that he is stepping up to that fight. And I would just say it was a, brilliant movement in the box, great header. And then obviously he gets involved for the assist to Kulusevski as well. I love his mindset. I love his energy and the way he approaches football. I know he's going to be one of those players that if he's not on your team, you're going to hate him. And I get that. But I love that kind of old school mentality he has, which is I'm going to throw my body about. I'm going to be a right pain. I'm going to annoy and wind up the defenders. And I'm just going to do everything I can to try and win. And yes, the quality's not been there, for a lot of the time he's been at the club. However, I don't think anyone can doubt his work ethic. And I think he's been rewarded. It was only a matter of when and not if, I think, him scoring. So, yeah, absolutely delighted for him. And I know, people like to think that footballers are invincible, that they are, a cut above ordinary people, that they, because of the money that they have and, the privilege and everything that comes with it, the fact that they are living probably, most of our dreams. Everyone wanted to be a footballer that I know pretty much, as a kid, that they are automatically happy and they are immune to criticism, and that, when they're on that money, they have to perform, and they're not allowed to make a mistake because of the money that they're on. Look at ordinary people and what, ordinary people earn. I get the frustrations with money in football, but fundamentally still a human. And these footballers will read the comments that fans aim at them, the horrible abuse that these players get. They will read and they will see, and they will be deeply affected, as any of us would be if someone went for us in that way, or large groups of people went for you in that way. And then, they question your character as well, when all you're trying to do is give everything to win, to please those fans who pay their hard-earned money to go and watch you. So, so delighted for him. And I just think, now going into the Arsenal game, the way we won that, the way that, that he had an impact, as did the other substitutes, can only be a good thing. And I'm sure, he's going to be absolutely desperate to be involved in some way or another against Arsenal.
How nice is it now, guys? How nice is it now that, when you see substitutes coming off the bench, that their substitutes are going to affect the game. Like under previous managers, you had substitutes coming on. Was it 0-0 against AC Milan, and we're bringing on Japhet Tanganga as an example? Whereas actually now you've got a scenario where you're 0-1 down. You got 20 minutes to go plus added on time, and I do think that Ange Postecoglou had a kind of an understanding that it was going to be at least 10 minutes added on, which is why he made them change later than what he did. But how nice is it to have them substitutes come on, Harry, and lads, and affect the game? Because all of them affected the game. Every single one of them that came on affected the game. Maybe barring Emerson Royale, you could say that he just kind of shored things up a bit. But all the other four that came on the pitch had an absolute effect on that game, which is exactly what you want, especially when you've been trying to break down, as we've discussed, a low block for basically 98 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that Ange is giving everyone, opportunities when he can. I disagree with what he's done against Fulham, but he's giving people opportunities. I do like that side. I understand as well where he's coming from. I think we now have that squad depth and players that Ange is already trusting, which is just fantastic to see. But moving on, because there's still actually quite a bit to talk about. But I want to touch before we move on to like the referee's performance and Paul Heckingbottom's rant after the game. I want to touch Kulusevski's goal. Winner, 101st minute, cool unselfish pass by Richarlison, goal and assist. So a great appearance off the bench, if you like, for Richarlison. So Lee, you were there. Talk to me about the scenes, your thoughts as the ball hit the back of the net.
I was so I sit in I say sit, we were standing, but I was crowd surfing at some point. Don't tell the club. I didn't mean to. At some point in block 252, I mean, we was off our feet. It was ridiculous. Absolute scenes. I can't get enough of that goal, that build up. Doggy, who, by the way, lads, I think has been absolutely first class. He's been so good. He made one mistake, I think, in that game. And I think that's the only mistake he's made in 5 Premier League games. And he recovered brilliantly. And again, I'm bigging him up because it was his front foot pressing in the final third that enabled us to win the ball back. Højbjerg picks it up, puts it straight through to Perisic. Quick, no touches from Perisic, straight onto Richarlison. Richarlison pushes it over to Kulusevski. And I've watched it so many times. I'm pretty adamant that Kulusevski puts that through the defender's legs. I think he nutmegs him to score, which is absolute. It was just class. And what I love about it with Kulusevski as well, he come under a bit of criticism at the beginning of the season, saying, "Oh, he's not the same player as he was when we had him for that first 6 months." And he did score for us, obviously, and he had an assist as well. And then he went away with Sweden. I think he got 2 assists, and he scored as well. And he's come back and he's just put that in the back of the net on the 102nd minute, whatever you just said, Harry. It was absolute scenes. And the thing is, the reason why I think people are getting a bit happy with it is because we fully deserved it. 28 attempts, 10 shots on target, 9 block shots. I mean, we absolutely battered them. 70% possession. I mean, we absolutely tore them apart. They had 2 chances in the game. Obviously, they scored one, and Vicario saved the other one. Other than that, they've done absolutely nothing anti-football. No offense, Sheffield United, but it was. But, everyone plays that way. And my word, I've just seen Jason, one of our own on last one on Spurs, he's just WhatsApped in the group. And he said that he's seen the stat that the ball was actually only in play for 58 minutes. Bearing in mind, we played for 105. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. And that goes down to, I know we're going to come on to it, Harry, but it comes down to that referee and all the antics that Sheffield United were doing. But I'm really pleased for Decky because I think this, and again, he's only young as well. I can't say kid because you boys are all young as well, right, compared to what I am. But this team's so young. The dog is 20. Decky's only 23. He looks like a big man and he's been around for ages or whatever. He's only 23. Porro's only just turned 24, I think, so he's literally 23. Van de Ven, when he touched upon him. You've got a bit of Van de Ven's going about you, Harry, by the way. A bit of Van de Ven's going on there, son. Loving a bit of Van de Ven. So he's 22, isn't he? So young, so hungry, and absolutely delightful.
There you go.
Oh, get in there, Josh. I love it. I mean, it's so difficult. It's so difficult to not like this group, and it was so easy not to like the previous group. Does that make sense? It was so easy.
Yeah.
I go week in, week out, and if I can go to the away games, I'll get to the away games like all of you and the viewers and listeners and whatever. And it was so easy just to not like some of the players, the group that we had over the last few seasons, including, the tactics and whatever. But it's so hard not to like this group. And you've just seen a post from Tottenham Hotspur official site on Twitter, on X, whatever it's called now, which is basically Son talking about how close the group is. It's like a full family.
Yeah.
It's like we talk about Richarlison's like off the field, and if you're happy, I always say this: go get a haircut, put a smile on your face. It sounds so basic, but if you've got a smile on your face, you can achieve what you want to go out and achieve. And that sounds cheesy or stupid, but it's true. Because if you go to work and you're not happy, you don't perform at your best. But if you're happy and enjoying yourself, you perform at your best, and your teammates see it, and it's infectious.
Absolutely.
I think that's why Sonny is becoming a fantastic captain, because who doesn't like Sonny? Even rival fans can't hate the bloke. I mean, he's just a joy, and now he's leading that group, and I think he's a genius.
Yeah, absolutely, Liam. And what I will say is, I'm glad you mentioned the young team, etc. I think it's really good to see the club, thinking about the long-term projects. The new model, if you like, that we've adopted. I think is fantastic. Really thinking about the future. Some of our signings as well, I think, represented that. Doku, when we signed him at the time, but right now, players coming through like Sarr, but just important signings like Phillips, who we know can be a real talent in the future. So that's just great to see a really young squad and playing some great stuff as well. But before we move on to finally the referee's performance, Josh, because you were there, give me your thought. Talk to me about the scenes when that goal hit the back of the net from Kulusevski. It all happened so quickly. From losing the game to ending up winning the game. So just talk to me.
Yeah, slight regrets, because I think, it's Sheffield United, as I said before we went live, and I found myself stood on my chair, swinging my top like this, topless, giving it all the big one to the Sheffield United fans. So for context, I sit in the North stand right near the away fans. So that was one of the things I loved about White Hart Lane, was that I used to be in the Park Lane next to the away fans, and I like the banter between us and the away fans, and them giving it to us and us giving it to them. In the world when you score, the worst when you concede. So I wanted to keep that going, and it was just insane. I said to my mate, because I brought my mate along. Normally it's my dad that comes with me, and sometimes my mum as well. But I said to my mate, the second that Richarlison and Perisic came on, and Emerson and Brennan Johnson, and I just said, don't know why I think we're going to do it. I can see it. And to do it that late, though, I mean, it was just, it was nuts. It was nuts. And it felt like, I want to be careful with what I say, because I don't want to get carried away, because it's still early in the season. We're still yet to, Man United are clearly nowhere near the Man United of last season. We've got Arsenal and Liverpool to come. I think that's going to be the real test. But what I saw in that game was something I haven't seen for Spurs in a very long time. And I know people say, oh, well, Leicester away. But, it was what was a complete once in a blue moon kind of situation for Spurs. Seems to just be starting to become the norm. And I think that, what I saw there was that resilience, that character that, we used to be called Spursy, and, people will still call us Spursy, but that felt like we broke Spursy, we beat Spursy, we overcame Spursy, because what happened was obviously a game where we have absolutely dominated, 70+% possession, 28 shots, as Lee rightly pointed out, to then lose 1-0 from a throw-in, and like the only chance that they'd had, other than, one in the first half, the only time they'd really been in the box in the second half. And that's how we lose the game. That would have been Spursy. And I don't know about you guys, but I was saying, this is so Spursy. This is so us. It's the most Tottenham performance ever.
Certainly would have been.
Yeah, we've gone from old Tottenham to new Tottenham really quickly. So, unbelievable scenes. And I think, to be honest, going into that Arsenal game, more than anything, we could have gone and won 7-0. And it wouldn't have been nearly as beneficial as winning in the way that we did. Because what that does in terms of the character, the resilience, but ultimately, I think every single one of them boys on the pitch have learned something. And they'll go into that Arsenal game a bit more resilient, a bit stronger, a bit more confident, and trusting the process. And I think that's always been something we've lacked. So, just absolutely brilliant. I'm still buzzing from it. And, I never thought I'd say that about beating Sheffield United at home. But also, the last thing I'd just say is these were the banana skin games for us last season.
Yeah.
It was these types of games where you'd expect you turn up and say, 4-0 Spurs, we'll cruise past them. And yet we lose those games.
Yeah.
I've said before on various shows, all I want to see from Spurs is us beat home and away the teams in and around us and below us this season, and let the season be defined on how we play against the teams that are above us or, challenging for the top spots. And so far, that's what we're seeing. So, incredible.
Yeah.
Can I say, sorry, I know you want to come down to Kallum, Harry, but just quickly on that, Josh, you make some really good points. I say this all the time, that history tells you that 68 points gets you top 5, 72 points gets you top 4, 62 points will get you in the top 6. History tells you that over the last 12, 14, 15 years in the Premier League on average. So the point which I'm coming on to from your point, Josh, is that actually when you beat the teams in the bottom half of the table, in and around you, you can actually afford to lose to some of the bigger teams. Losing to, it's an absolute joke, by the way, but losing to Arsenal at the Emirates is not embarrassing. It's really horrible. We don't like it, but it's not embarrassing. Losing to Brentford at home, great respect. That's embarrassing, right? Losing to Bournemouth at home, that's embarrassing. Like, you know, the losing to Everton a couple of seasons ago under Jose in the cup or whatever, that's embarrassing. Great respect. So, you know, I think that you're right. When you look at the accumulation of points, yes, we played Manchester United, but other than that, we played 2 promoted teams. We played, I can't remember. Brentford, obviously away. That's a pretty good result to come away from there. There's not many teams going there and winning. So, you know, when you look at the points total that we've got, it's probably expected. But I think when you put the context into it of how shocking how bad we was last season, Harry, compared to what we are and now how we're playing, that's why we were elated. And actually, for me, Arsenal, I know we'll come on to it, but Arsenal's a free hit, to be fair, next week.
Can I just say quickly on that point, though? Say there's 13 teams below us on average, right? And I know Tottenham could finish anywhere in the top 7, right? But if we were to finish top 7, that would mean 13 teams below us, which is 26 games. Times that by 3 is 78 points.
Top 4, 100%. Top 3. That's top 3.
And then if you wanted to add the 3 points we've already got from the Manchester United game, and I know obviously the season doesn't work like this, and this is not, you know, a maths equation. It comes down to 90 minutes every week, but you could look at potentially plus 80 points. If you beat the teams around you, we've beaten Manchester United once. We could lose to all of the other top 6 teams, home and away. We've still got enough points. That's exactly why you've got to beat the teams in and around you.
Spot on. I totally agree. You know, and look, football's football. That's why we love it. It isn't a maths equation. It doesn't quite work like that. But my argument to that, my agreement argument, although for the people that are doubting that what you just said there, Josh, is that we've got no European football this year. And you know, Arsenal are about to play PSV this week. We don't know how they're going to cope with that in their new squad. Yes, they're at home, and then they're playing us at home, so they don't have to go anywhere. But we know from last year, lads, viewers and listeners, that the Champions League is different gravy. It is so much harder to come back, and if you haven't got the right squad, if you're not at it, all of a sudden, you know, you're going to be feeling it. Declan Rice has never played in the Champions League before. Yes, he won a European trophy with West Ham. Never played in the Champions League. Different level. So actually, that equation that you just talked about, Josh, you know, I think it actually has never rang more true than this season, because we don't have European football, and annoyingly, he made 9 changes, and now we don't have Carabao Cup football either. But we play 13 games until the transfer window open, lads, viewers and listeners. 13 games. That's it.
Yeah.
So 1 game a week, win the games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really, really important, Lee. So yeah, I'm glad you bring that up. The major change this season. It's a free opportunity as well. I don't think there's any pressure going into that Arsenal game. Obviously, North London derby will be upset if we lose, but we can, I'm sure, eventually see the bigger picture. But Kallum, coming to you, I want to know your thoughts on the referee's performance. Talk to us about the main decisions in the game as well. Should we have a penalty, foul on Maddison? Should Sheffield United's goalkeeper received red card for handball potentially? Just talk to me about, you know, his performance and what also you make of Paul Heckingbottom's rant after the game. Is he right? Is he wrong? Talk to me.
I think you know from our discussions the last couple of weeks, I am one of the worst people to ask about VAR and referees because my patience is very low with it. But yeah, realistically, what we've got is Maddison's decision first. That, in the light of day, looks like it weren't a penalty. When you look at it from different angles, I would say 95% I would have given it based on old rulings. But based on the new rulings this year, it has to be more contact. And I looked at Sky Sports' Ref Watch earlier, and they said that based on where Maddison got hit, he got hit on the left ankle. He goes down on the right. So I think there's an aspect there which says that, does it take him off balance? Is there enough contact? What do you define as contact in the box? So that one, I would say, if you asked me last night, I said a pen. Tonight, yeah, a little bit on the fence on that one. I thought the instance where Son actually went down in the box as well. I thought that was more of a penalty than the Maddison one, to be honest, as well. But that weren't picked up. The amount of time wasting that it took. Was it the second half that the Sheffield United goalkeeper got a yellow card in the end, or was it the first? He spent half the time either on the floor with a concussion or trying to put his gloves on and all that for that game. That was that. I mean, to book him first off for actually handling the ball out of the box, I thought was the right decision. A lot of people called it for red, but based on the ruling, unless you stop a goal scoring opportunity by doing it outside the box, it's a yellow card by definition. So the ref got it right. But if you're then going to use his time wasting aspects to go up to it, then you're going to be getting into a very grey area where you have to go, can you really book someone for time wasting if they're already on a yellow? Because it's a big decision to take. And if I think, was it Peter Banks who was the referee? He is not one of my favourite referees at all. He's definitely not happy one after the weekend. But if you set a precedent where you say that you're going to book someone for an infringement or a actual punishable offence, and then you're going to do it for time wasting as well, it doesn't set a good precedent, especially with the But then when you then get on to Heckingbottom crying out of his small little world on going, oh, we follow the rules, we do this, we do that. Oh, I don't think it was very fair on us, all the extra time, all of that stuff. I was like, the reason there's extra time is because your brain of Britain's on the pitch caused it. So how can you cry about a self-inflicted piece of pain? You cannot define it by any measure of doubt.
Very true.
58 minutes, the ball in play. That's the stat that Jace, one of our own, last one of Spurs, put out earlier.
Crazy.
It shows how much of
half the game.
Yeah, it shows how much of a prat Heckingbottom is, to be honest. It shows how much of a prat he is and a dinosaur manager, because his style created this pretty much definition of time wasting. They did it in the Championship last year, and they've done it this year. At least with Luton coming up, they're happy to be here. And then who was the other team that came up? Who was it? Burnley. Burnley actually played nice football. They tried to play like City, not so much. Sheffield United, I really find them so boring as a team to
fair
watch.
Enough.
I saw them last year.
Thank you, Kallum.
So yeah, ridiculous.
No, fair enough. Cheers, Kallum. Before we move on and focus on a couple of individual performances and then go to the Arsenal game, time's gone quickly actually. Lee, give me your brief thoughts on the referee's performance and Paul Heckingbottom's little rant. It's fair to say at the end, was he feeling the pressure?
I think so. I think it's one of them, lads, viewers and listeners. At the end of the day, that if he wins the game 1-0, he comes out and says ref was brilliant. You know, he was well within his time, blah blah. But you know, the fact that the ref got a red card out for 2 yellows. Who's
Bernie?
Bernie. Yeah. So he might get 1 game ban now, or whatever. Now might end up with 2 yellows, meaning a red. That probably rolled him a little bit. I think it rolled him. You think of the elation that we all had on that 101st minute or whatever. He must have just been, no way. I mean, look, I said this on Twitter. You can follow me, by the way, at Lee McQueen, fair play. But on Twitter, I put out there it had Ajax vibes. I was in Amsterdam for the Ajax game. And obviously the magnitude of it was completely different, of course. I'm not comparing Sheffield United to Ajax semi-final of the Champions League.
Surely not.
The man of what was happening and stuff. So you look at Paul Heckingbottom and he's probably thinking, the reverse of that. Players going down on their haunches. Like he's just like, oh my days, we've worked so hard on that plan and it nearly worked. So a little bit of frustration coming out from him. But again, I think the refereeing decision, was it Peter Banks? absolute shocker, mate. Not being funny. He's probably tuned in, Harry, to your good show. To be fair to him, and I'm sorry, I'm not holding back. It was absolutely awful. It was an awful refereeing performance.
Yeah.
I also thought VAR was terrible as well. I'm sorry, Kallum, I disagree. I think it was an absolute stonewall penalty on Maddison, and the only reason why it wasn't given or looked at properly is because Maddison went down like a ton of bricks. He kicked through the back of his leg. If that is at the Emirates, or if that is at Anfield, or if that's at United,
Yeah.
that is all day long, I'm afraid. So for me, I do agree with you on a someone. I mean, we was in the stadium, right? Not a VAR screen didn't even come up. So they said they were having a look at it or whatever, but we didn't know. Josh, I don't know if you agree with that. We didn't have a clue. It was
didn't show up once.
Yeah, there's no communication.
Well, it just felt like to us, Harry, that they wasn't looking at it, and I thought as a stonewaller. So, he was given that drop ball incident. Are you joking me?
What's
crazy?
With two balls on the pitch, and he gave it as a drop ball. He gave a goal kick when clearly the goalkeeper saved Solomon's shot. Like, and it would have been a corner, and he gave a goal kick.
I think Lee, sorry to jump in. I think he just lost control of the game in the end. I think he got after 20 minutes, he just completely lost control and didn't know what to do. It's almost like he forgot the rules.
Yeah, I agree. It was a shocking performance, to be fair, and I think that maybe he's got something going on in his personal life, like with Richarlison, like the rest of them.
Yeah, you never know.
Game, long may it continue. He doesn't ref another one of our games, because I thought the whole thing from start to finish, even his leniency around the time wasted, I thought was like, as Kallum was alluding to earlier, I thought that was terrible as well. To be fair, I mean, I get it. It had Foster vibes, isn't it? Ben Foster vibes, like time wasting for sure. But yeah, I thought it was terrible, Harry. To be fair, lucky we got out of it. To be fair, because we'd have all been really, really annoyed.
Yeah. 100%.
Jump in quickly, just on one.
Go for it.
I don't think I've actually seen a game with that many yellow cards. Was it 12 or 13 yellows?
13 yellows.
Plus a red. It's a joke.
By the way, can I just say another quick stat just to jump in, Kallum, if I can? 13 yellow cards, right, Harry? 13 yellow cards, one red card, and not one of them was Romero. Take a bow, Romero.
That's amazing. That wasn't possible last season.
Honestly,
is he still yet to be booked this season, isn't he?
Yeah. No,
he hasn't had a fight once.
He's made one foul in 5 Premier League games. One foul, let alone a yellow card.
Incredible. I think that's having a reliable partner next to him, Van der Ven, personally, because he doesn't do that for Argentina. But before we move on to the Arsenal games and the questions people put forward for Lee and the guests, I want to touch on one individual I can pick out. And for me, that is Vicario. So coming to you, Josh, what do you make of Vicario's time in the Spurs shirt? This is something me personally feels very strong about, because he was labelled as the cheap option. He was dismissed basically pre-season and the first game against Brentford unfairly, I think. So what do you make of the way he's responded to that and how he's done recently? So for me, he's been fantastic. But what do you reckon?
I think most, if not all, fans are guilty of judging players that they don't know anything about. I think that's fair. I think fans that hear of a player that they haven't actually extensively watched, because look, the reality is none of us are really sat for hours on Scout watching these players or watching through the tapes like the analysts at the clubs and those that are involved in the decision making and the coach and all of that, they get up to. What I based it off was, my dad's Italian. He watches a lot of Serie A. He was impressed with him. Every other Italian person I'd seen and spoken to and heard from was saying the same thing. This guy is really good. It's easy to get carried away by videos. It's easy to be carried away by pre-season as well. I hold my hands up against Sheffield. Shakhtar Donetsk. I was questioning not whether he's a good goalkeeper, but I was saying, I'd like to see him a little bit more dominant in his area. And maybe it was, him settling and whatnot. But he's got the highest save percentage in the Premier League so far, 83.3%, something like that. I know it's early days, but he's level with Edison for most clean sheets so far. He is just imperious, isn't he? He is absolutely imperious in terms of, just his stature, his personality. Look at the way he sprinted down the pitch to celebrate with the players. And, ultimately, all those moments where, I don't know if you three were at the game. I know, obviously, Lee, you were for Sheffield United, and Man United as well, both home games. How many times, I don't know, have you been a little bit nervous when Vicario's getting on the ball? Not because of Vicario, but because we're so used to Lloris making us feel nervous in those situations.
Yeah.
And then you have to tell yourself, oh, chill out, mate. It's Vicario. He's got this sorted.
He knows what he's doing. Yeah.
It's when the ball gets crossed in and he's not flapping for it. He's, putting his body on the line. I mean, that save with his feet was just exceptional. Absolutely brilliant. I'm delighted with Vicario. I think he's a huge personality. And when I first heard the interview that he gave when he joined the club, I said his English was so good, he sounds Danish. And for an Italian to speak that good English from the start, something that's been kind of cropping up with Ange is that Ange likes to hold video calls with players, almost like a formal interview before signing them. He wants to make sure that they fit into the system, that they fit in, I suppose, in terms of their mentality and who they are as a person. And for him to have passed that with flying colours, Ange to say, this was my first choice, this is who I wanted. We've got a number one for years to come now.
He's doing well.
So for me, this is exactly what we need. And I think goalkeepers are often a position that that are overlooked in terms of the importance of their personality and what they bring on the pitch, in terms of how they organise the back line, in terms of how they speak and communicate and kind of get players going. Buffon used to be the best at it, right? Buffon for Italy used to have such a crazy personality and used to be, telling players to focus and delivering messages. I never felt we had that with Lloris, even though I felt like maybe he was a good leader in terms of what he did off the pitch. I never really felt that watching him on the pitch. So I've immediately felt that. He almost gives off captain material, Vicario, even though he's not a captain. So
I wonder, Josh, just to interrupt you there, I wonder whether or not that is, because I agree. I think you can also almost say that about Harry Kane to a certain degree as well. Like a leader on the pitch, leads from the front, leads by example. Hugo Lloris, World Cup winner, leads from the front, leads from as an example, but actually vocally, neither of them are, controlling from a goalkeeper perspective. I wonder if we're seeing this with so many people in this team because of the manager, because that is what he wants. That is the way he is setting up his team. Does that make sense? So you start.
You've been impressed with Vicario as well, Lee, as one of those individuals.
I tweeted it yesterday. I think I think he's mad as a box of frogs, and it's exactly what you need as a goalkeeper. And I mean that in an affectionate way, but not in a horrible way. I think he's commanding. I think he's safe. He plays left foot. He plays right foot. He can dink. He can pass. He can soak pressure. There's a good cut. He done a good couple of throws as well. You don't often see goalkeepers throwing it out that often now. He did a good couple of throws during the Sheffield United game as well. Excellent shot stopper. Gets up, gets down, very good. I mean, that save against Casemiro, point blank, bloody bullet header, absolute brilliant save, save yesterday with his feet. Saturday with his feet. I don't think, and this is what my point I made right at the beginning of the show, we are giving away too many chances. We are giving away too many chances, but he's saving them. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could argue if he was in goal, I mean, Forster has been okay, but if he was in goal for the Fulham penalties, would that have been different? I'd love to see him save some penalties or have a look at him in penalties, because I think he's got it all, to be honest.
Absolutely.
And I think it's an outstanding signing.
Absolutely, Lee. Personally, listen, I love Postecoglou. I think he's got everything right. Apart from that Fulham game since he's come in, why bring Forster on for a penalty shootout? All I can think is that he hasn't watched Forster in a penalty shootout before. We know it takes him a while to get down in the corner. Vicario won't give it a go, but. Kallum, before we move on and focus, we really want to briefly talk about the North London derby and our upcoming games. Give me your thoughts on Vicario.
I think we've been calling out so long. Back the manager. If the manager wants the players, you give him the player. And Vicario's proved that. I mean, everyone wanted Raya. I remember you seemed to be quite a big advocate of Raya, weren't you, Harry?
Yeah.
Quite a while.
No, I was, yeah.
So, I mean, everyone wanted Raya because you want what you know. Whereas, Vicario has come in. He, like Lee said, mad as a box of frogs. He probably just literally sits there and bounces up and down all game because he does it. But at least you know that he's a goalkeeper that can play out from the back and actually distribute the ball now. He can actually fix the ball. Whereas Lloris, we haven't had that for so long, if ever. So it's actually nice to have composure. But you're going to invite more pressure with Ange's system anyway, because if you're playing that high up, you're always going to have it coming towards you. And you just got to be back in Vicario, make sure that he feels comfortable. Being able to actually communicate with your backline in English is very good as well. It builds confidence. It means that if the backline are confident enough to pass back to him and then actually play around his box, then they have faith in him. And if them four in front are on the same wavelength as him, then you've got a solid defence. Yeah, you're going to concede goals. Is it 4 or 5 that we've conceded now? It's not that many compared to how we was leaking them last year.
5, I think.
5, yeah.
So, I mean, Vicario's not really had any chance to save many of them, if any, to be honest. And one of them was a penalty. So, I'm much rather in having Vicario in goal than...
Absolutely.
And to be honest, Forster as a backup's not bad either. To be honest, he's just not the greatest. But Vicario, good choice, and shows that the data analysis sort of style is working at the moment. So let him may continue.
Yeah,
I just think backup, he's just nowhere near as good as his feet, and I think you could see that in Fulham. He got some praise, I thought, Fraser, in the actual game, and actually some of the games that he played at the last since the Newcastle game when Hugo got dropped or whatever, and he was leaving in the games, he was okay, but actually now comparing him to Vicario, you just want Vicario in between posts, don't you? Let's be brutally honest.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, do you reckon it's different? Because there is about 10 years between them, something like that as well. So it's not anything against Forster's age or anything like that, but he is a older guard goalkeeper now. So, and it's the same with Lloris. Vicario's a young man still. He can do all the fancy jumping about and saves.
Yeah.
So he's got age on his side, and he's a goalkeeper that hasn't reached his peak yet. So you still know you're going to get mistakes with him on the odd occasion, but it's just at least he hasn't caused us a goal or errors at the moment compared to Lloris. I think he had 6 or 7 last year. He actually called. So the points have got to be so tight with all of it this year.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on, Kallum. Before we focus quickly on North London derby, I want to go around and ask you one by one. All I want is just the total points you think we're going to get for our next 5 games. For anyone who doesn't know, our next 5 games are Arsenal away this weekend, Liverpool at home, Luton away, Fulham at home, and Crystal Palace away. Quite a few London derbies in there. Lee, coming to you first. Just want how many points you think we're going to get from those 5 Premier League games we have coming up next?
I think we will get 9. I think we get 10. I think we get 10.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. 10. That's not too bad. Thank you. Josh, how many points do you get him?
How tempted I am to say like 13, or even 15, but I'm not going to say that. I could see us getting 13, but I'm going to go a bit more conservative. I'm going to go 11. Still very confident, though.
Okay, thank you very much. Kallum?
If I say 1, how many people are going to want to kill me by the morning?
Quite a few.
To be honest, I'm going with probably 9. I reckon we're going to at least lose 1, maybe 2. But yeah, if we get anything over 6, I'll be happy with, and all that, because it means we're going in the right direction. To be honest, mate. So yeah, I'll go with 9.
Okay, thank you very much. There you go. So focusing on the North London derby. Coming back to you, Lee. I want to know your score prediction and your thoughts ahead of the game. Are you confident? How are you feeling? Are you ready for it?
Well, I haven't been asked back in the Sky Studio yet to do my combined Arsenal Tottenham 11 like it was last time we played each other.
Go for it if you have it.
As well. I hate doing combined 11s, but it is what it is. I mean, I started riling the Arsenal fan base by basically putting all the Spurs players in there. But look, I think a lot of my lads actually on the last one of Spurs group were talking, WhatsApp group today, we're talking about, it's a yardstick to where we're at and where we are and all that sort of stuff. Where we are right now, playing brilliant front foot attacking football. We're second in the Premier League. We got knocked out of the Carabao Cup because we made too many changes. But we've won 4 games on the trot. That's for the first time in, I think, since Poch. You might have to check that stat. I know for a fact we didn't win more than 3 games on the trot last season.
I think it's the first time since Poch. Yeah.
So when you look at how far we've come in a short space of time, we're loving life, we're loving Ange, we're loving the football that we're playing. These might be the bumps in the road, and I'm okay with that. Arteta's spent over 600 million quid since he's been there. He's got the team that he needs and wants. They are absolutely generational. This team that he's built. He's a generational manager. They've got generational players. Aaron Ramsdale is absolutely phenomenal and amazing. So the reality is, and they're at home. We haven't beaten them since Kabul's backward header from a Van der Vaart free kick in 2010. So the reality of the situation is we got a free hit, in my opinion. We never go to the Emirates and win. Under Pochettino, we go to the Emirates and we get a couple of draws or whatever. We won in the Carabao Cup or the League Cup as it was with the Dele Alli flick. So it's a free hit for us. It's the worst fixture on the calendar. I absolutely hate it. I cannot stand it. I don't look forward to it at all. It's awful. So I think it's a free hit. I think if we can get a point, it would be absolutely amazing. And that's not doing anyone down. That's not being inferior. But we are behind Arsenal. Let's be honest. They're a brilliant football team. He's got them playing really, really well. The pressure's on them. They're at home, at their house, and they have to go out and smash us. And I don't think they will, to be honest. If we can get a point, it'd be great. I'll take one now. You never know. I'll take a point.
You going to commit to a score prediction? There you go.
I'm not saying that we're going to lose, so I'm going to go 2-2. I'm going to Desmond 2-2.
Sounds good to me. I'll take that. Josh, North London derby, how are you feeling? And if you can give me your score prediction.
I'm really sorry to disappoint you. There's no chance in hell I'm giving you a score prediction, not for a game like that.
Right.
Yeah, every time I do that, it backfires. So
say we lose then if it backfires.
Something I like to do, I don't know if you guys do this as well, if it's just me being a weirdo, right? But when I'm at the game physically, I sometimes look at the scoreboard and I squint like really, really like this. And I try and my distorted vision gives me a scoreline, and whatever I see on that scoreboard with my distorted vision is what I'm going for. Look, I don't think we're going to lose this game, though. Having said that, I think this is probably the best chance we've had to go to the Emirates and get a result. Obviously, we won in the Carabao Cup, but it doesn't really count. This is the best chance since that Kabul header to go and win and get a result there. I am not for 1 second going to underestimate Arsenal. I think they have immense quality. They are one of the best, if not the best team in the Premier League and one of the best in the world at playing against the high press. So you go and press them. They're very, very good at transitioning, counter-pressing and breaking away quickly. The difference that we have, though, is that now we've got an absolutely rapid backline, probably the quickest backline in the Premier League. So the likes of Saka and Martinelli and Nketiah and Jesus probably won't have the same joy that they have against other defences. However, that being said, we do concede chances. And against Arsenal, that is one team you cannot concede chances to because they are ruthless and have been ruthless for a little while now. So I think what we would actually be quite wise to do is to try and force them out wide and hope that they have to go aerially in the way that we were attacking against Sheffield United in that first half, because I think that's our best chance of keeping a clean sheet, that's for sure. But equally, we have possession and we have chances too. It's going to be one of those games where we cancel each other out and it's goalless, or it could be goals galore. So for me, I'm feeling confident. I think the one thing more important than anything else was, as I mentioned before, the resilience that we showed against Sheffield United. It was much better to go in like that, as I said, with the players really all learning something, probably learning more about themselves than they'd even realised before, you know, coming back that late as opposed to cruising against them. I think it gives us a bit of a boost there. And also the fact that, you know, how we view this game could completely change come Wednesday, Thursday, after Arsenal have played PSV and they could be unfortunate and get injuries, or fortunate. So, yeah, for me, it's the best chance we've had in a very, very long time. I'm feeling semi-confident, but as I say, the cliche goes, you know, form goes out the window on Derby Day. It really, for me, is going to be who takes their chances, and it's going to be the tiny, tiny margins that decide this game. So, yeah, I think it's right down the middle. It could go anyway.
It sure could. Sorry to interrupt. Anyone who comes in the chat, listening live on YouTube, or in general, who comes in deliberately to target hate or abuse yourself, the guests, or anyone in the chat will be immediately removed. And 2 individuals, sadly, tonight have now been removed. Who've come here for no good at all. But I believe in second chances. They've been banned for 48 hours to reflect. So yeah, just call it out. Nothing will be tolerated here. We're having absolutely none of that second week in a row. Moving on to the questions that people put forward on Twitter this morning, because we and everyone listening, viewers and listeners, are so much better than some people who like to ruin it. First question's for you, Lee. Barney says, he put it forward in the morning, says, morning. My question for Lee is, how do you get into supporting Spurs and the history behind it? That's actually a good question.
Good old Tottenham. I watched the FA Cup final back in 1987 against Coventry City. And I cried when we lost. And then. I actually supported Queen's Park Rangers because one of my best friends, his house where I grew up backed onto Queen's Park Rangers' training ground. But we went back then. The FA Cup final was always on live. It was always on Saturday, 3:00, classic. And you'd all gather around and I watched Tottenham Hotspur. I loved the way they played. And I just loved everything about it. I loved their kit. I loved the fact it was a white kit and you didn't really see that in the top tier before. And I loved the fact that we were playing swashbuckling football. But we lost the game, obviously, to Coventry City. And I cried. So Spurs made me cry. Shock right there. We've all done that. But I was hooked from that day on. So, yeah, that was it. 1987, Coventry City FA Cup final. We lost. I became a Spurs fan.
There you go. Thank you. A great question and great answer from Lee. There you go, Barney. Yeah, top question, actually. I've never had anything about that. So thank you for that. Questions. Josh, and come to you next from Jacob. He says, based on the first 5 games, what do you think will be challenging for come the end of the season?
whatever we want to challenge for, whatever the players are prepared to challenge for. That's how I see it, right? It would be so easy to say, oh, top 4 this or Premier League or whatever you want to say. Ultimately, it's down to those players. What do they want to achieve? If they want to go and challenge right up at the top of the table and they want Champions League football, if that's the limit that they're setting is, we want to get top 5 in place in the Champions League, then that is, that's their standard. I think we should be aiming as high as possible. And I think that there should be no excuses to not try and win every single game and believe you can win every single game. And if you do that, you give yourself an amazing chance. I genuinely do believe we'll be back in Europe next season. I think that it would be probably as big a surprise as if Luton was to stay up if we didn't get back into Europe, the way things are going. I have a feeling we will get Champions League football. I said 5th on Chris Cowlin's show at the start of the season. I've stuck with that ever since, and I'm going to stick with that in 5th. I think 5th would be a great season for us. I never thought I'd be contemplating, could we even finish higher than that? Obviously, a lot of football still to be played, injuries, transfers, so much context that could define the season. For all we know, there could be another pandemic and it changes football again. But, as things are going, I think I can see us getting back into the Champions League. And I think what I want to see is the fact that actually, I don't think that we've been really having the conversation about this. And of course, I'm going to happily answer the question that was sent in and would happily answer any question sent in. But ultimately, this is not really the conversation I want to have, because I think where Tottenham's at our best is where there isn't that expectation. We're not talking about where we need to be, because that's what we've done wrong. I think we've put too much pressure on ourselves, and it's gone badly for us. So I think actually where Tottenham have always been at our best is when we're the underdog, when we're not fancied by anyone, when everyone, is taking the mickey, and we prove people wrong. Everyone was saying not a chance we beat Man United, and look what happened. Everyone again is saying not a chance we beat Arsenal, but we could well beat Arsenal. And I suppose similarly, touching on actually the question that Lee was asked in terms of how he became a Spurs supporter, the thing that I always loved more than anything was the fact that even though I know we are a massive club historically, and we are one of the big teams, most football fans don't support clubs like us. It was always this sense of it feels like we're an underdog that did it for me, as well as obviously the family links. So that's it. That's it for me. Okay. We can achieve what we want.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Josh. Kallum, next question's come to you. We're only going to do a couple more. There is, believe it or not, over 30 questions, so thank you all for the questions. We'll be here all evening if we answer them all, and some really are fantastic. I'm picking out the ones that come to me first. So sorry if yours isn't read out. It definitely will be in future shows. So Kallum, Ray says, which player is going to have the greatest redemption under Ange's season, who's currently not part the regular team / matchday squad, and who is most likely to reach their full potential? 2 amazing questions.
Oh, so I think the best person to still come in, being around that squad, I'm hoping Lo Celso. I'm so hoping Lo Celso, because he has so much promise. He's got to the Europa League final. He's done so much right, just not in a Spurs shirt. And I think that and heaven forbid, if Maddison actually gets injured, he has so far to go. If he steps up and actually does it, that'd be outstanding. Yeah. So it'd have to be him, or maybe a small shout out to Brian Hill if he ever isn't injured.
Yeah.
I think that's the best 2 options. Just potential wise, I think someone like Van der Ven has a massive ceiling. I think literally he is going to be the long-time heir apparent to Van Dijk for the Dutch national team. So, but it's down to the Dutch manager actually picks him and all that, because that was frustrating as hell in the international break. He's your best If not, you
we don't mind though. Surely, as Spurs fans, Callum.
Well, yeah, but I like what my grandfather was Dutch, so I kind of have to support them a little bit and all that.
Fair enough.
No, so yeah,
There you go.
that's where I'm at with that one, mate.
Fair enough. Last question I'll give to you, Lee, because it is for you, and that is from the wonderful Path from Paxton Road TV, who says, I have a question for Lee. Lee, what do you think about Ange's system, and do you think his reign under us will be successful, and what will it result in?
Well, I'm loving Ange Ball. I'm loving the system. The inverted fullbacks are a genius for me. I mean, I've seen Pedro Porro pop up in the number 9 position. I've seen the doggy pop up in the number 9, number 10 position. I'm loving it, and it doesn't feel like that. Although we said earlier in the show that we are giving away chances, it doesn't feel like we're giving away more chances than we were in previous seasons when we were playing low block, parking 15 buses and just hitting teams on the counter with Son and Kane. So, I don't think we've suffered in that much way. And actually, the stats bear that out in the sense of how many goals we've conceded. We've conceded less goals than some of the other top teams in and around us already. So, I think I'm loving that the system. Success is defined by you, not by anyone else. So I don't really know what everybody wants success to be. Is it a trophy? Is it top 4? Is it top 5 even this season? Is it a title challenge? I don't know. But for me, I think, as Kallum just said, the ceiling's so high with Van der Ven. I think the ceiling's high with his team. And actually, as Josh alluded to earlier, I just think that I think if we keep doing what we're doing, 13 games left until the transfer window. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry, I'm still hoarse from Saturday.
No worries, you're completely fine.
13 games till the transfer window. No European football. I think our ceiling's massive, and I think we should be targeting as many points, obviously, as we can, beating the teams in and around us and below us, and being competitive. Excuse me, and I know that's probably not what people want to hear is what does that mean, being competitive, but going to the Emirates and giving them a game, a proper game.
Leaving at 110% of the pitch.
Exactly. That's being competitive and actually being up there for sustained periods. We do have it in us, even under Antonio. I mean, let's be fair, he gets a lot of stick, but Antonio walked into an absolute shit show, excuse my language, at Tottenham afternoon, and he got us in the top 4. So even with the squad as it was then, and the manager and all of the things that were going on, we were broken as a squad. We know that. We know that Son was playing through an injury. We know Romero's come out and said that he was broken. We know that Richarlison's come out and said he would never have played for Conte if he was there again. So we know there were certain situations. And one of the key reasons why Harry Kane wants to leave is to go elsewhere to win trophies. You know that's not right. So I do think the ceiling's big for this team, for this young team. But let's just enjoy it. A little bit like what Josh said. Let's not put pressure on ourselves. Let's just go and enjoy football again every single week. And let's see where it takes us. Because here's the thing, and you need to remember this, all of us. When Poch first came in 2014, no one thought anything was going to happen. Our expectations were just ripped up. A little bit like Gareth coming into the England job. Everyone thought, that's it. There's no expectations. The reality is, with Gareth in the England job, we've got to a Euro World Cup semi-finals, quarterfinals. Under Pochettino, we got to Champions League final, 2 title challenges. We had 2 League Cup finals, 2 semi-finals in the FA Cup. So, yes, we didn't win the trophy, but we were competitive, and that's where I want to see Ange get to. I just think, and I hope, and maybe I am getting carried away, but I do think Ange has got it, and I think that with his credentials, with double trebles and winning everywhere he's been, in the way that he's done it, maybe this could be the one that gets us over the line and end that trophy drought. And massive fingers and toes, everything crossed, Harry.
I love the positivity. Thank you, Lee. That is a great way to end today's show. It's all the questions that we could get through. So apologies if yours weren't answered. I'm sure Lee can, and any of the guests can answer at a later day or send them over to them. But yeah, massive thank you for everyone who tuned in. It's massively appreciated. Thank you all for your comments, your questions. It's been fantastic. And thank you to the 3 fabulous guests we've had the pleasure to share the screen with tonight. Firstly, Lee, representing the brilliant Last Word on Spurs. Ricky's got something really, really special there. So talk to me, Lee, about where people can find you next and Last Word on Spurs.
Yeah, so at Lee McQueen on X or Lee.McQueen on Instagram. I don't normally talk like this, by the way, but I'm literally losing my voice. Yeah, Last Word on Spurs. You can follow Last Word on Spurs. We get a lot of interaction through all the social media. Loads of shows coming up on Last Word on Spurs as well. All of the pre-match, post-match reaction as well. So massive game this weekend, as we've all been talking about. So yeah, tune in after the game for the review. Straight after the game, normally a couple of hours straight after.
Fantastic, thank you, Lee. It's a pleasure to have you on, Josh. Second time on the show. Thank you very much for coming on. Talk to me about, where people can find you.
Yeah, at Josh Hughes TV on X. Normally just doing all of this stuff, but in tweet format, if we're allowed to call it that. Yeah, busy as always at Mail Sport. Lots of changes, lots of good stuff. Keep your eyes peeled for some great North London derby content, including a few fun interviews with a couple of legends as well. And yeah, just keeping on the work grind, a slave to the desk, trying to do my best to find out news when it happens and bring that to people. So yeah, at Josh Hughes TV, if you want to give me a follow. And thank you so much, Harry, for having me on the show. Thank you, Lee and Kallum as well. Great show and enjoyable as always. And yeah, privileged to be on as always.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great to have you on as well, Josh. Kallum, talk to me about where people can find you and talk to people about our wonderful Park Lane podcast.
Mate, it's such a pleasure for you to have me on once again. Obviously, it's only my second show. I'm always on with you as your co-host on Park Lane with Luke and the guys over there. It's amazing to actually have two of my heroes from Last One on Spurs, different podcasts, in Josh and Lee, who have done different bits to them as well.
There you go.
Followed the guys all summer as well. So that's such a pleasure. And I think, Harry, would it be too cheeky of me to offer an invite out to both the guys if they are ever free and want to come and join us on Park Lane? It would be great.
I'll make it happen.
We're all on there.
Hook us up, boys. Hook us up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty much always hosted by Luke or Harry or myself or Dave or Winnie. 7 a.m. on Sunday evening. But Harry, I will not steal your podcast, mate. I promise, because I do blow you a coffee as well, mate.
No, don't be silly. You're completely fine. Yeah, no, fantastic. Yeah, I'll also speak to Luke tonight, and let's make it happen. Yeah, massive thank you. If you want to follow me, completely up to you. You've got my Twitter handle there, Harry Scarf 22. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to smash the subscribe button if you like what you're seeing as well. Massively appreciated. Thank you, everyone, tonight. Viewers, listeners, it's been amazing. If you are listening on any podcast platform, don't forget, follow, 5-star review, be massively appreciated. Just before coming on here, I was on BBC Essex with my good friend Barney, talking autism and neurodiversity. Our day at Fulham we had last month, and our day coming up at Tottenham. It's fantastic. Yeah, so thank you very much all for your support there. Have a great evening. Come on, you Spurs. Bring on the North London derby. What's stopping us?